Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rapid Chats with Angus. My name is Angus Opperman, and in this video, I want to talk about the proverbial gap between rugby nations. Now, we've seen the two competitions running where the South African, New Zealand, and Australian teams have been involved in. South African teams playing in the URC, and the Aussies and the Kiwis playing in Super Rugby Pacific. Now, I want to rewind back to 2021. We saw New Zealand going through a bit of a dip, Australia getting some resurgence in some sense, and South Africa with a topsy-turvy season. It was very, very difficult for all three teams living the bubble life, the bio bubble with the COVID situation. And I do think that 2022 is the year that they will want to have answers, definitive answers, on where they stand ahead of the 2023 World Cup. Now, if you look at the results of Super Rugby Pacific and the URC at the moment, it's very difficult to compare the two leagues at the moment, to be honest. I mean, prior to our inclusion into the URC or the Pro 14 as it used to be called, I was very much anti it. Wasn't very much for it, to be honest. I thought it's going to be a weak league. It's going to be a walkover for us, and it's going to be easy for us. It's not going to improve any quality. But I totally changed my mind on that, to be honest. I mean, I was an advocate for Super Rugby. I enjoyed the competition. I loved it when SA teams were involved in it. And obviously, change is hard, but it's inevitable, and we had to live with it. And now the thing is, I think after seeing the Stormers and Leinster B game, I actually realized how competitive it can be. But also on a positive note, how good the SA teams are in the competition. But back to the actual topic of tonight or of today, for that matter. Um, I think back to 2021, and I'll take it for team by team. So I'm going to start with the Springboks and get it out of the way because that's obviously the team that I love the most here. I'm not supposed to say that. I'm supposed to be neutral. But if I look at the Springboks, for instance, 2021 was the emergency year. They didn't play, I think, for a time over 20 months prior to that, to the Lion series. They had one test match to prepare against Georgia. The second one was called off because of, I think, half the Georgian team got COVID at that point in time. And then it came down to them using the SAA match as preparation against the Lions for the Lion series, which they won, I think, by a narrow margin. Um, their big goal, I think, for 2021 was to win the Lion series and to defend the Rugby Championship. They managed one, and I think they managed a big one, is win the Lion series. By hook or by crook, call it unattractive, call it boring rugby, they done their job. And I think they deserve the world respect for that. Obviously, they got a lot of criticism for their style of play. But I always say if you want to watch running rugby, there's league, there's sevens, there's other coaches if you want to see that. Test rugby is all about one thing, and that's winning. Doesn't matter how, if it works for you, it works for you. And it might seem unattractive to the other nations or even your own people, but if you get the results, who's going to complain? You know what I mean? So I think for the Springboks, the questions they want to answer is, was 2021 just a minor dip because of circumstance? Because they went into a Lions bio bubble, barely came out of it, and went into another bio bubble in Australia for the Rugby Championship. And I think mentally, for all the teams, not just South Africa, I think Argentina got it the worst, in all honesty. Mentally, they just couldn't perform at their peak. They got two home wins against Argentina. Things were looking fine. And then they went overseas, played the Aussies twice, lost by a last gasp kick against Quade Cooper. And it should have been a penalty the other way, in all honesty, with that last scrum. And then in the second test, after that, there was a lot of pressure on the coaches. They won, or they basically thought, geez, the public complains, we need to play more expansive. And they did. And they got a proper thrashing against Australia. So you go into another test match and you play New Zealand and you lose in the last minute to a Geordie Barrett kick. And then they managed to, turn the tables in the final test match when Elton Jenkins kicked that last minute penalty. So I think for the Springboks also, they lost a lot of games on last minute plays. They couldn't close it out. And I think that's the one thing they will want to answer for themselves this year is, can we close out games we should have won? They should have won against England. They should have won the first test against Australia. And they should have won the first test against New Zealand as well, the 100th test between the two nations. So those are the things they need to focus on, I think. Also, I'm all for playing the way we play, but if you look at the England game, I think England scored twice of set play moves off the line out, I think it was. And that was just brilliant play. I think we should be, I'm not saying we should play expansive rugby, but just be a bit more innovative. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, going through the line, setting your maul, and then driving for a penalty. But from there onwards, what do? You can't go one off runners all the time. It's too easy to defend. That's just my take on it. I'm not an expert on defense. I'm not an expert on attack. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just a fan behind the camera. But to me, it's too easy to defend one off runners. You need some more innovation when it comes to a free play. And I think that's the one thing South Africa has been lacking to execute something special when it's on. But enough of that. I think, like I said, that is the question they will want to answer. Can they close out the games they need to close out? Because come 2023, if you come into a World Cup quarter-final and semi-final, you can't be losing, well, you can, but you don't want to be on the receiving end of losing to a last-minute kick by a Quay Cooper, a Marcus Smith, a Jordy Barrett, for instance, or any other player out there, Anthony DuPont. You don't want to be the one losing to a last-minute kick just because you couldn't close out the game. So I think that's the important thing for South Africa. For New Zealand, they have a few issues, quite a few issues, I feel. Firstly, I also think that Ian Foster is out of his depth. In all honesty, I think he's out of touch with what's going on. And I do feel that they just should have been the guy taking over. And I think a lot of people will echo my thoughts as well. But in saying that, Ian Foster has been granted to go through to the World Cup as the head coach. And I think the questions he wants answered is, can they actually find a settled midfield combination? Let's be honest, the All Blacks have not had a settled combination since Conrad Smith and Manonu retired in 2015. They've been chopping and changing, and they just haven't seemed to find anything. And unfortunately now, Anton Linder-Brown seems to be out for the season. Quinn Tupaia has been good for the Chiefs, but he's been playing on the wing I think, 2 weeks ago. So there's not consistency in selection at the moment. I think they might look at Leicester firing on Luku. That's a possibility. But Ian Foster needs to make sure that he has a proper single combination he can go to come 2023. And if he doesn't sort that out, I don't see the All Blacks getting further than the semi-finals, even the quarterfinals for that matter, the way this World Cup is set up, to be if things pan out a certain way and, some results go and just might upset the apple cart for that matter. So that's the one thing for them. And I also think that the question that will probably be answered as well is, did they really miss SA in Super Rugby? Because they always talk about the physicality the South Africans bring. Sam Whitelock mentioned it recently in an interview that they missed that. And will it affect their game come 2023 or even this season? I mean, South Africa played New Zealand twice in South Africa this year. And I can't see why they can't do the double over them. I don't see why not, in all honesty. So I think that's the questions they need answered. And then for Australia, I'm going to include New Zealand in this post as well, or in this discussion. So I've looked at the Super Rugby Pacific results recently, and I do think Australia managed to close the gap on New Zealand. And there's the small matter, and not so small for Australia as for New Zealand, but there's a small matter of the Bledisloe Cup. And could it come home this year after 18 years? Is it possible that the era of George Greig and them might not be the last to hold that cup? Who knows? But the Brumbies have been absolutely dominant this season. The Blues are the trendsetters in New Zealand, not Crusaders anymore. The points in the losses that the Aussie sides had isn't that big. The Chiefs got away by 2 points against the Reds, for instance. The Fijian drew or lost by 2 against the Highlanders. Moana Pacifica managed to beat the Hurricanes. So this does leave the question, has New Zealand rugby gone a bit softer, or has it regressed in general, not just on test level, but on grassroots, provincial and franchise? Because looking at these results, it's not what one expects from new teams in the competition. I mean, was it in 2020 that the Chiefs couldn't win a game? Yeah, in 2020 the Chiefs couldn't win a game. The year prior to that, they lost to the Sunwolves. So I don't want to talk ill or anything, but you have to question, is the New Zealand rugby brand still that strong? Because a lot of their best and young players are not even playing in New Zealand anymore. A lot of them went overseas. They play for other teams there, European teams, Japanese teams. And the thing with their home-based selection policy, where they don't select anyone outside New Zealand, might be coming back to bite them. And I'm saying that with all due respect. I mean, there's also the small case of players that can be able to change their nationalities or their preference for who they want to play for after 3 years. I know Nagani Namape has been pushing for it because he wants to play for, I think it's for Tonga. There's a lot of guys who could switch on the All Blacks and represent another nation going forward. So, I mean, come back to Australia again. I think they are the team that can probably challenge New Zealand this year, in all honesty. And yeah, hopefully the Aussies have gotten the better of New Zealand going forward, hopefully, because I think if they don't do it now, 2023 will be too late. But I do think New Zealand rugby and Australian rugby in general, they're not where they're supposed to be. And I'm not saying this because the South African teams aren't participating anymore, but I just don't see how these teams are actually going to do very well in the World Cup, let alone win it. I'm not saying South Africa's going to win it either. My pick is on France, in all honesty, because South Africa also has some stuff to deal with, which I'm not too happy about, but that's a story for another day. But in terms of Australia, I think their question is, have they actually closed the gap properly on New Zealand? If they can win, I think just one test this year against New Zealand, I think it's already a plus for them. But ideally, I think they would want to win the Bledisloe Cup. And I think ideally they would have to win the Bledisloe Cup this year. It's on. I think it's there for the taking, to be honest. Because to me, basically, like I said, it's just a case of there's the opportunity. They don't have Anton in the Brown. If you select the All Black midfield, he's the first guy you put on the list. He's not there. He's not going to be there. Well, the next guy's in line. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't answer the question. They've got it outside backs, They have Sevu Rees, they have Jordy Barrett, there's David Avili. They've got Avili could be a centre option as well, but he's been exposed last year already in that position. There's an exciting Will Jordan. But if these guys are physically dominated up front and they come up against a very good defensive side, they tend to fade away. So I think that's the one thing that the Aussies will need to check as well. But hey, like I said, I'm no expert. I'm just rambling in front of the camera for you guys. But yeah, that's just my take on the 2023 season or 2022 season heading into 2023. Please do like and subscribe if you like this video. To let me know what you think about my rant here. And yeah, hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. I wouldn't know when, to be honest. I'm just trying to to live life and just survive in all honesty. But I also try to live my passion and just talk about rugby and yeah, have a bit of fun in front of the camera. So I'm sorry I rambled a bit there at the end, but yeah, you guys keep warm, stay safe, and hopefully I'll have a chat to you guys soon. Cheers.